Hey everyone, I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's Entrepreneur, coming to you today from Toronto. Today, we're going to look at the entrepreneurial journey of Dan Pantiello, the president and CEO of CanGuard Security and Investigations. Dan founded CanGuard in 2005. The company is a full-service security corp with a core business of online training, background checks, guards, and private investigators. His objective is clear: to help you get to where you want to go as economically and as seamlessly as possible so that you can be your best in society. For Dan personally, it's not being the biggest or the best, but being an integral and helpful part of this convoluted world of security. Dan manages to dedicate about 25% of his time to helping candidates navigate through the world of security and assist them in getting job ready, employment, or help them choose the best career path for them as individuals. Dan has a solid background in policing in Toronto and was able to make the transition into the private sector and entrepreneurship very successfully. His philosophy is simple: the more people he helps, the more help he gets from people. Dan wants to give us a fresh perspective on how traditional industries can evolve into a modern digital first world. So Dan, welcome to Canada's Entrepreneur. It's good to meet you. And as I normally do, before we get deep into the discussion, the conversation, let's find out a bit more about who you are and your entrepreneurial journey, why you jumped onto it. So how about a 4 or 5 minute summary of that first?
Absolutely, Phil, and I'm excited to be here and just I commend you for having this platform, and I think it will encourage a lot of people if they're thinking about it.
Hmm.
Anyway, really, what it boils down to is it's who you are and how you feel on the inside, and how the mindset I have is how can I best impact my society and and for the betterment of all. So that was my decision in 1976 when I decided to go into policing, and you know did not pursue continuing or going to college, which was an option for me in Durham College, and just happy um, to know that policing is a place where I had a chance to make an impact. And uh, so I made that decision. It's a tough decision. You have to be 110% committed to it. And there I was, a young man in my career. I have no regrets um, in that career. Worked through the classes um, in a short time. Went through the classes, which is a class structure that policing has. Everyone starts at fourth class, and then every year you can be promoted to the next class if you're doing your job to their expectations. And in a few years, I reached the first class constable and was able to continue in that role and working mostly in uniform, investigating crime and also investigating Highway Traffic Act incidents. And later had a chance, later meaning later in my career, had a chance to actually do some undercover work in what's called intelligence. And that's where I really was able to hone some skills about surveillance and how to protect myself and look at the subject at hand. So as time goes on, life is still here. And this is a thing to remember, that we're all dealing with building a life. And in my case, I had a good life. I had a supportive wife. I had 3 children along the way during my police career, but things change. The only constant in life is change. That is a quote from a French philosopher. I don't know his name right now, but it helps you be flexible and understand that, okay, all right, so this is not going exactly the way I want. And in my case, unfortunately, my wife had some health issues that were really, really weighing on our whole life structure, and which meant that I, to ease the family life at home, it would be a benefit for me to leave my policing career after some 20 odd years and go into another type of work, which I really wasn't prepared for. Um, so this is where your mind has to start now transitioning, and this is what this is hard to do. So it didn't happen automatically, and it took about 2 years for that process to actually come to fruition. And what that means is I had to look at an area that was similar to what I understood and what I learned in policing and apply it to real life so that I can again be that person who's helping my society. And fortunately for me, through contacts, through conversations, I met a gentleman who had a very successful company. At that time, it was a security alarm and camera company in Ontario, and he was offering a dealership or franchise program. And that's when I decided that this was a good opportunity for me to make my move and transition from my policing into this area where I had less pressure, more predictable type of hours to work, and could be an assistance in my family for my children and my wife. And I made that move. It took about 2 years, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to prepare not only my mindset, I had to prepare finances because I was still the only breadwinner. And I was in a position where in policing you have what's called an cumulative value of monies that you contribute, the police association contributes, and it's all monies that is built up that goes towards a pension if you should be fully pensioned. And in my case, it was called just an accumulative value that I was able to withdraw and use as a part of my backup to transitioning out of the public sector into the private sector.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think it's interesting that, you're not the only one. Is this sort of the step from, sort of, I'll say military, but from that kind of organizational setup into something that is very different. Um, and you said it took 2 years. I'm interested to find out, because others might be listening. What other things you looked at, and why did you choose the entrepreneurial route, where you took all of the sort of the investments that you've made and
Yeah.
decided, hell, I'm going to go this route, kind of thing.
Well, I'm glad you went in that direction, and so filling in a few blanks. Um, First of all, it's you. You really have to feel that it's part of you. It's who you are, and you have to be able to have 100% commitment into doing a transition into self-employment. Although I had a company that was going to support me and teach me and be there should something go wrong with the process on day-to-day basis. But still, I am my own company, which means I have to incorporate myself, and I was now responsible for a corporation. Um, the 2 year process of getting there is really based on timing. So timing meaning gathering my finances, putting my finances in place. I had some assets. Back in the 80s, it was a time where um, there was a boom in the real estate market, and I particularly um, have that kind of a personality where I look and I look at potential outcomes of where I can invest. And I was one of those investors in the 80s, which means I had 2 condominiums that I had invested in during the 80s boom that lasted from about 85 to about 91 or 92 before it busted. Actually, about 91 before it actually busted. But I was able to cash out of 2 condominiums, one that was fully rented and one that was brand new. And I was able to cash out. And again, all in preparation for what's going to happen next as a backup to me, the sole breadwinner. And what do I want to do? What does Dan really want to do? Um, what am I excited about? So those are the things that you have to analyze to yourself, and also sample. I actually had a chance to go out and sample what that kind of work would be, through that company. They said, if you're not sure, why don't you come out? Why don't you learn about us? Why don't you go out on a couple of calls with one of our reps, and why don't you see if it works for you? There was another area I could have gone, and it was an available opportunity, which was the growth and the launch of a brand new sector in Canada. It's the paralegal industry, where a lot of former police people were retiring and also resigning to actually set up their own paralegal office and defend mostly traffic, Highway Traffic Act cases. And to be honest with you, Phil, I sampled that as well. I actually did a little bit of that. And I realized I hate being in the courts. I realized I hate being in that funnel of gridlock of the court system and people, and it just for the long term, it's something that did not appeal to me,
Okay.
and that's why. Again, it wasn't a single avenue I was looking at. I was looking at those 2 avenues.
So it's interesting. Let's sort of move on a little bit. I mean, you started this back in 2005.
2005.
Yeah. So you've been at it for 20 years.
Yes.
You know, how big are you now?
Well, starting a corporation, is not always the place that you should start once you start. So I'll just back up a second and just say to you that it's actually technically my second corporation, because in the business I chose to transition out of policing. I ran that for about 10 years.
Oh, right. You said that. Yeah, you took it. Yeah.
I ran that for about 10 years, which means I built up a residual value in my business that actually had a monetary value, and I got a buyout. I
Mhm.
got a buyout after 10 years. Um, and that happened in around 2000, um, where I was now looking to move into something new and something again that would resonate with my life. And I did some corporate um, work, um, and I would contracted myself as a corporate security consultant, and I had a very close look on what's going on in that area, which helped me make a decision that if anyone is going to be in this kind of work publicly, it should be a person like myself. And what it took to become that person legitimately as a known brand and company was to be an agency under the auspice of the Ontario government who polices all security guard companies. And that's where in 2005, I started Kangard as a proprietorship initially. And you don't have to incorporate. If you're not making any money, there's no reason to incorporate as a proprietorship and just building the company one day at a time, one item at a time, until you reach a point where you want to take another step of growth, which means um, doing business to business, doing business to business. And if you're doing business to business, corporations want to know, hey, are you incorporated? Are you protected? Let's and if if you cannot prove or say that to them and actually prove it to them, no corporation wants to do business with. So proprietorship first in 2005, and in 2008, I registered the company as a corporation in 2008 because I wanted to attract business to business growth.
So, what what's best, different and best about being an entrepreneur versus being an employee?
Okay. So you're able to make your decisions really quickly. You're able to make
Mhm.
your decisions quickly. You're going to be responsible for those decisions, good, bad, or ugly. But you can move. You're moving at a different speed and a different pace. And if you are the type of person that is um, goal minded, you have goals. Um, you have a belief that you want to duplicate yourself um, in the world, and meaning that you now have employees that are going to be actually out there doing the work that you've created. That is really the difference between the entrepreneur and what it comes down to is to duplicate yourself. Duplicate yourself. So I did that in the beginning of the company, and I did that um, by by connecting with I'm going to say with the so I aligned myself with other agencies. So in 2005, I became a licensed agency, and that has its own hurdles. Um, but it took me. Imagine my background and my knowledge. It took me about 6 months to go through that approval process with the provincial government to become the actual agency, which means you are now an agency of what? I'll tell you right now, Phil, it's in my agency, there's three parts. So you can become an agency as a security guard company only, as a PI company only. But in my case, I became a dual agency, meaning security guards, private investigations. And in 2010, the government of Ontario mandated security guard training, a standard of training. So I became a training entity under the auspice of the Ontario government again. So there's three parts in my business. And I worked every day, every day. So that's 7 days a week. Why? Because it's your business and I want to be there for my people and my clients. So what does that mean? So like at the beginning, Dan Pantaleo did the work himself. And he did all the work himself, the private investigations, the security guarding. And suddenly I needed to duplicate myself when I started getting some temporary contracts. I'll give you an example of a temporary contract. A hotel said, "Hey, Dan, we like you, we trust you, we'd like you to look after our day-to-day security needs in our hotel." And it started with one hotel. It became 8 to 10 hotels very quickly, which means Dan Pantaleo was now hiring people and was an employer. So working in the business, building a business is this is the huge distinction between you as an entrepreneur and versus an employee. Yes, you can excel as an employee. Yes, you can have beautiful rewards, but really as an entrepreneur, it's unlimited. Unlimited. I had a problem. I had a problem saying no, which means I kept a very, very high profile of who I am, what I'm doing. I was involved in my business with my clients, my employees on a daily basis, almost to a point where they were part of my family. And I was always there. And what happens is, I couldn't say no at art. I just didn't learn how to say no. And in about 2014, the year 2014, I had 35 employees working for me, Phil, throughout the Greater Toronto area.
So you built this. What do you think is the greatest challenge you faced as you've been building the business to date that maybe some people can learn? You know, if it's a challenge, you've obviously overcome it. So they can
Well,
some people can learn from that.
yeah, I've shared this with my colleagues who are agencies. And it's really important to understand that you're running a business, which means you have expenses, and you have revenue. And the challenge is to really be careful and watch your expenses. And of course, as you work your business, the revenue will follow. Just watch your expenses. So what I've always done is I've always watched the big expense, which is the overhead. And part of that overhead, the biggest part of the overhead is the office. The office. What that means is that we, as security agencies, we fall under the Privacy Act, and we have to ensure to our government that we have an office that's accessible to the public, and also it's safe and secure, which means that the files are safe and secure and protected. So I figured out how to do it to minimize my expenses. And what I did right from the beginning, Phil, is I shared office space. So I have shared office space with insurance agencies, with real estate brokers, and eventually, um, as my business progressed and as funds allowed, um, purchased a home where I actually set up an office in the home in 2011. So it was all within the regulations of the province of Ontario, but I'm now running my business out of my home. So I always maintain the biggest expense to make sure that it was always in check, and didn't really go out and buy any fancy vehicles, and didn't really splurge on those areas, and reinvested constantly into the business.
So you're offering some really good insights here. I'm interested to know what, looking some of the advice you're giving, the mentorship, but what's the best piece of advice that you've received that you use, that's always there, kind of in your back pocket. It's something you always use.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that always be open to education, always be willing to learn, invest in yourself. Investing in yourself means that actually take different courses or programs where you can learn a skill and that you can apply it directly to your business and your life. And the single best, I'm going to say, and it's just the way I say it, it's inch by inch, it's a cinch.
Okay, let's move away from the serious stuff that we've been at for about the last 20-25 minutes. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
What book are you currently reading, podcasts listening to, whatever that you'd recommend to our audience?
Okay. So my daily life involves that it just the way I am. My personality is that I can only be the best person to my business and my society by being the best person overall. Mental health, physical health, and I've been on that mission probably ever since I left policing, because to be sick means that I might be away from my business for a while, and it would really hurt or impact me, because the reality, Phil, is it's really difficult to replace yourself in your business, and I tried to on a couple occasions to replace myself. So I spent a lot of time on downtime, which means probably in the evening, listening to real doctors. And one of the real doctors I listen to is a cardiologist from the U.S. And he's led the way on plant-based nutrition eating, which actually probably saved my life, because I'm 70 years old now, and at about 60 years old, I ended up in the hospital with not death threatening, but it's a condition with that's very painful. It's called kidney stones.
Oh yeah.
And
I know a couple of people like that. It's
kidney stones,
thank goodness I don't have that. So,
and gout, and you know it's an
yeah,
accumulation of hard living. Policing is very hard work, meaning that you're working shift work.
yeah.
You're eating sometimes at 3 a.m. It just plays havoc on your body, and it's an accumulation of that kind of a lifestyle, and also um, just not knowing anything different. And I continued to eat and drink the way most people do, but maybe eating and drinking too much. And my body said that's enough. And then I had to figure out what to do next. Um, when I came out of the hospital and recovered, um, our our health system doesn't really lend to helping one learn how to eat and what to eat. So we meaning me and my wife caught on to Dr. John McDougall, who's that plant-based doctor, and a number of other doctors and scientists, just to learn. And through that learning, I was able to transform, my whole life, and my whole physical being. I was quite a problem person, looking for trouble, maybe health wise back then. 220 pounds, 5'9", happy guy, but just didn't know what was going to happen next. But through that little incident, I learned, and it took some time. It took 10 years, but through that process, I started gaining my health back, gaining my health back, gaining my health back to where I am today at 165 pounds. And I do a doctor's blood test every year. And I can happy to say that blood work is 100% right on all the markers. My heart is 100%. And so it gives me confidence and courage to just go out and work in my business.
So are you a morning or a night person?
I am because of my scheduling, meaning that my time clock um, with in the security business um, kind of forced me to stay up till the last guard books on duty, which is usually around 12 or 1 a.m. So I'm a night person to about 12 or 1 a.m. right now, and still have been, and up at 8, 9, depending what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, what's keeping you up at night these days, apart from your work?
What's keeping me up? What's keeping me up is um, I I'm gonna say I plan my business in like 5-year increments,
Yeah.
and I try and look at what's next and what's going to be new for Dan and what's going to be new for Kangard. And I've been very successful at that because um, let's go back to 2014, 2015. I had a lot of I had business was 24/7, Phil,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't replace myself, although I tried twice, moving supervisory people into operations, and it was not working. It could not work to my expectations, and I started assigning my contracts to my colleagues. Started paring down.
Mm.
So pare down that part and pair up the other parts that are not going to weigh on me so much. And that part is called online security guard and private investigation training.
Okay.
Online. Well, now I have the business working for Dan. So since 2010, I've worked really hard because in 2010 they mandated they mandated training, and in 2010 we did our first couple of classes live in a class, and again through my endeavors of collaborating with different people and companies, we converted our information to an online program. Well, now the company is working for Dan 24/7 online training. Well, what's keeping me up is thinking about ways how to build residual income in my business and actually implementing it. The other part that I've implemented successfully, and it's recently, is only in 2024 did the provincial government in the security industry say that all guards, all private investigators are now responsible for their own criminal background check. Whereas in the past, upon your renewal of your license every 2 years, or just to become a PI or a security guard, you need to have a background check. The Ministry of the Solicitor General was doing it for us and paying for it. But in 2024, they said, guess what? It's now on you. This is a procedure that we want you to do, and you're paying for it. And it was quite a surprise to the industry, and especially to security guards who are making a wage, but they're really starting at a minimum wage. Anyway, again, that's what kept me up at night, thinking, okay, how am I going to get this done? And thankfully, there's a beautiful Canadian company. I'm not going to name it, but they are like a leader in background checks internationally. And I am aligned with them and one of their agents to actually perform those background checks every day. Not only to our industry, but every industry, and for anyone that needs that service, we're performing that service every day.
Well, Dan, we've come to the end of our time.
Okay.
Okay, but it's been really, I can see why you do it. I love your detail, and some of your observations are going to be really useful for people. So thank you very much for coming on to Canada's Entrepreneur. I think it's a really interesting episode.
Bill, thank you very much. It's been a joy, and I just encourage everyone to look at inside themselves, really do, and say, how can you help society, and what do you want to do?
Okay.
And I hope I've inspired them. Thanks, Phil.
Well, that was terrific. I loved Dan's attention to detail and how that has helped him to build such a successful business. I hope you all enjoyed listening, and like me, you got some advice that is really useful for your day-to-day operations. I'm Phil Bliss. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, or subscribe on any one of the major podcast channels. Thanks for listening to Canada's Entrepreneur, where you meet the entrepreneurs that drive Canada's economy. See you soon.